I feel I don't know what this Godzilla versus Hedorah. I don't know if we've reached the bottom of the barrel, but it certainly feels like it. At least it wasn't a clip show like All Monsters Attack. Oh, jeez. Let's just get this over with. Versus Hedorah, or known in certain parts, Godzilla versus the Smog Monster, is exactly as it sounds. Godzilla versus Hedorah, a gigantic monster made up of the pollution and the smog that has polluted Earth's oceans. This is where we are with Godzilla, folks. I don't want to come across as too harsh because director Yoshimitsu Banno, who directed this movie, like I mentioned, he made this movie because he wanted to convey an environmentalist message and try and save the planet and all of that. I can understand where he's coming from and I can somewhat sympathize. He would later say in an interview that he saw the oceans filled with detergent that people had dumped and just imagined this monster as kind of like a result of the pollution of the earth. And again, I can kind of understand, like, I can understand to a certain extent why this would happen. I mean, literally, like the Godzilla movies up to say Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, had some kind of message of like Japan's healing psyche against nuclear war, the television industry. There was something going on here. The big problem with this movie, and it pretty much kills the movie dead in its tracks. Godzilla is basically fighting a monster made of sludge. He's basically he's basically fighting a gigantic turd, and any semblance of an environmental message is lost in the massive soup that is a massive dinosaur facing off against a literal sentient turd, for lack of a better example. This movie is like if an Inconvenient Truth had dinosaurs in it. Like, what are we doing here, people? It also doesn't help things that the environmental message is all over the place in this movie. There's nothing inherently wrong with this. The big problem is that it's just everywhere and you cannot escape it. There is a literal song, like a James Bond-esque song montage at the beginning of this movie, where the big song of the movie, Save the Earth, plays. And it literally comes across as like a Bond montage. But while those montages are cool, this comes across as Steve Buscemi walking the hall saying, "How do you do, fellow kids?" and save the earth and all of that. And it just comes across as dumb. Hedorah looks like the butt monster from Pink Floyd's The Wall. I did not know I would be comparing that to Hedorah, but here we are. And there's even animated sequences like in the Wall movie. Just for perspective, the Wall movie came out in 1982, several years after Godzilla vs. Hedorah. So there can't even be a coincidence with that. There is also a general feeling that while there was no like massive amounts of stock footage used from what I have read, this felt like a bit of a rush job. In my research, I found that the director, Yotsuhiko Banno, only had 35 days to make the movie. So he was not really given that much to work with. And there was even supposed to be a sequel made of this movie, but the big time producer at Toho, his name is, I'm going to read it so I don't get it wrong, Tomoyuki Tanaka, hated the movie and fired him. So yeah, that was pretty harsh. Even though this is a bad movie, I just don't like seeing people get fired. I don't like seeing anyone get fired. It just doesn't sit right with me. Doesn't change the fact though that this movie is horrid. It's better than All Monsters Attack, and that's literally the only arrow in this movie's quiver. There's some cool moments in there, but that's about it. Moments. And really, the thing that you'll probably remember the most from this movie is that Godzilla flies. He uses his atomic breath to fly. I've got nothing. I'm just gonna play the clip and see it out. Like, see you Saturday for Godzilla versus Gigan.